everything.
You got like 3 minutes. Do it now.
I think she got everything she deserved.
It was long enough. I tested very well in prison, in front of church people. I digress. Thank you for sharing.
Can you hear me now? Kind of insulted me. I do not want that.
It was about 5'3".
I don't have nothing for her.
Morbidly obese like your president. She was the nicest person. Her head got big.
I'm wrong about both of them.
Hola.
Oh, hello, titties. Yeah, well, yeah. It happened.
Ooh, her being ignorant.
Yes, I did.
I'm here.
I'm Miss Pink.
Did he just Mr. me?
Yes, touche.
Google it. Hi, I'm Riley Knoxx.
I'm Shaina Taylor.
I'm Tiffany Thomas.
I'm Ernest Collins.
I'm Dwight Alexander.
Good evening. I'm Byron Garrett, and this is We Speak. Well, good evening and welcome back to another great episode of We Speak. It's good to have the cast back in the building for today. How are you tonight, Riley? Good to see you.
Good to be seen.
Ernest, you're back with us this week. Good to have you back, sir. We missed you last week.
Great to be back. Great show last week, man, and I miss you guys. Great to be back.
Well, thank you. Hello, Tiffany Thomas. How are you tonight?
Hey, how is everybody?
Hey, we're doing good. And Shaina, looks like you're in another great working location, always on the move as an entrepreneur. How are you this evening?
Awesome. Just hustling and hustling. You know how I go.
Making that money. And back with us, our great special guest, Dwight Alexander. How are you tonight, sir? Good to have you back on the show.
Doing well, sir. Good to see everyone.
Well, we're going to get right into it. Here's the quote for this week. James Baldwin will quote Uncle Jimmy yet again when he said, "It is certain in any case that ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy justice can have." And that's going to tie into the show because there's so much that's happened this particular week. New York's MTA wants Apple to create a Face ID that works with masks, so even your phone doesn't recognize your pandemic-era self. Also, $11,500, that's roughly the price of a single Bitcoin right now. So for all of you who follow cryptocurrency, it has surged more than 60% in the year 2020. And we all heard this last week, the stimulus money has gotten stalled. I think we talked about it already, but in case you don't know, talks are on the ice and don't expect any new stimulus checks anytime soon if you were planning to get one. Macy's has granted $9 million in bonuses to top execs after cutting almost 4,000 jobs of associates. And in Iowa, making such great progress, they have ended a lifetime voting ban on people with felony convictions. Major, major change out in the Midwest. Nick Cannon says he's going to vote for Kanye West. I don't know how that's going to work out. And then also down in great Tampa, Florida, Sean Jackson, a 19-year-old young man, asked the court to try him as a white man or a white teenager and even brought evidence to the court to show how folks who are white have been receiving slaps on the wrist for similar charges in hopes that the court will see him differently. We'll be curious to see what the court says in the next couple of weeks. And it's now a felony in Illinois to assault a retail worker who's enforcing face mask rules. So for all of you Karens out there and Kevins and Kens or whatever other name you go by, be careful, especially if you're in Illinois, because the misdemeanor charge can result in up to a year in prison and fines of up to $2,500. And the fate of the 2020 college football season is looking grimmer by the day. Shana, I know you're disappointed, but the Big Ten and the Pac-12 conferences have postponed their fall seasons altogether. And Riley, you might want to look away on this one, but giant swamp rats about the size of chihuahuas, those little cute dogs, they've started appearing in a San Antonio, Texas park over the last week. So those are our top headlines for the week. We're going to get into it on our very first topical issue for the night. You see it on my particular backdrop. And our resident clairvoyant predicted Joe Biden would select none other than Kamala Harris as his running mate for the 2020 presidential election. And Shaina, you called it. And of course, the occupant did his best to belittle this selection. But in a quintessential example of fragile masculinity, he suggested that Biden was insulting men everywhere by picking a woman as a running mate. I don't know what he's thinking, but we never do. He also called her a nasty woman at that, and Kamala Harris has already brought a big boost to the campaign by raising $26 million in the first 24 hours. As a side note, the occupant supported Kamala Harris in 2011 and 2013 and even gave $6,000 towards her political campaign, and Ivanka Trump even gave $2,000 in 2014. So I'm curious, let's dig into the politics. What's your thoughts on this historic move with Kamala now being the official VP nominee for currently Vice President Biden? So who we gonna start with? Let's go to you, Shaina, since you called it last week. You've been 2 for 2. The last 2 weeks, you knocking it out the park.
I mean, there are so many people that you'll talk to that say that I think that I'm smarter than 10% of the world, and I keep telling them I'm smarter than 3% of the world. I mean, I don't even know, and I can predict these things. So I predicted everything. I do feel a little bit bad because I didn't realize that I was pronouncing her name incorrectly. So I'm sure I pronounced it incorrectly when I made my prediction, but we all know who I was speaking of. So I'm super excited. When I thought about it, there was not any candidate that was out there that I thought would be a better fit for the campaign than Ms. Kamala Harris. So super duper excited, being a California girl myself. I mean, no, I'm not partial, but she was just the best candidate. And you see how much she was able to fundraise in 24 hours. So that's another thing that just showed how good of a candidate she was. And I think that she's going to really help the card in a lot of different areas, not just that she's a Black woman, she's multiracial. She's got a household that just speaks to all different types of differences, right? So it's not even a norm or anything that's common. So they'll speak to America in so many different ways. And she just happens to be smart and witty. And I'm going to be looking forward to her on the campaign trail even more than Sarah Palin. Don't tell Sarah that I said it. But I think her debates are going to be even more interesting, and I'm just going to get my popcorn ready.
I'm curious, Ernest Collins, since you're back with us this week, and you've been a supporter of women throughout this entire time. What's your thoughts about Senator Harris being the nominee?
I have, and I appreciate you guys giving my girl a shout out last week. I think she's where she needs to be, meaning Keisha Lance Bottoms. I think she still has work to do in Atlanta. This choice was good. You know me, I had 3 choices. I like Val, and of course I like Karen. But the right person for the job right now out of those top 3 women, I would say is Kamala, as I've just learned now how to pronounce her name, Kamala. I've been saying Kamala. I think she's tough. I think she can handle herself. I am a little disappointed in what they're going to have to fire back, which the current occupant is already saying when she brought this race thing up. It doesn't matter, but the point is, I wish these candidates would learn, be careful what you say, because you never know what you say, how you have to eat it later on. I don't think it's going to bite her that bad, but I just think it's an unfortunate weapon that they have to throw out, which I'm sure we now have a team that knows how to fight back just as dirty and fair as this other administration's party's doing.
Okay, very well said. Riley Knoxx, let's get your perspective. What's your thought? Are you supportive and excited about her candidacy, or it doesn't really matter?
Of course. And I got to say, bow down to Shaina, bless the prophet. She's always right. Always right. But I'm really excited. I was, I said last week, remember, I was just like, you're running out of time, pick somebody. But I could not be happier with the choice. I would have been happy with any of those women that were, we were all talking about, but I'm really happy about her.
And Tiffany, we're going to give you the final thought on this segment, but Dwight, we want to make sure we get your perspective too. What's your thinking about Kamala Harris being the official nominee? It's the biggest news this particular.
Yeah, it's amazing. I on the show last week, she wasn't my first choice, but I am just thrilled and excited to see a Black woman at that level of power, especially one who has come from an HBCU. Shout out to Howard, and all the other HBCUs. That's going to be important, and there's going to be a very high bar for her, probably one that will be unnecessarily steep. But 100%, I'm all in. No shade, no hard feelings, no nothing. I still think that my girl will have a role to play in the administration as international things take a hold. And even though he was late, he said he was going to do it on the 1st. The timing was amazing because the convention is getting ready to start.
Yeah,
so let's get to work. Let's do it.
All right.
All
Dwight,
in. Let's do it.
Dwight, I'm curious, what do you think? And I've got a follow-up question for folks, but I'm curious, Dwight, what's your initial impressions? I'm sure you've been sharing already, but what's your thinking about Senator Harris?
Sure, I'm excited about it. I mean, when it comes to the level of influence that Ms. Harris will have in the office, I think it will be tremendous. You know, it's another Michelle Obama potentially, as it relates to, you know, a pipeline of young women, you know, being in similar positions. So I think it sets us up for success long term, and I think it's great for the country.
Well, you heard it right here, but I've got this question. Y'all know there's this controversy brewing in Black Twitter and in Black America around, is she Black enough? Is she really Black? I've looked at her Breakfast Club interview. She's been on record about her race. Shaina, you alluded to it in terms of how diverse she is, including her household. But I'm curious, is this really an issue, or is it much to do about nothing? This whole conversation around, well, she's not really Black because, you know, she's not really from an African-American family. What's your thoughts, Shaina? Because I know you've been processing that quite a bit.
Well, if you remember, that was another thing that I had actually predicted. Because that was one of the, right? I need to do this. That was another thing that I predicted, that I was fearful of if she was actually the nominee. I knew immediately that was going to be what they were saying. But at the end of the day, first of all, she's an AKA. So we already know she's deep in frat. She's deep in the culture. It's so many things that they can say that she's not, but there's also so many things that we already know that she is. So I'm gonna go ahead and just swipe left, or is it swipe right? What the kids do? They swipe left or they swipe right? Which I'm gonna go ahead and swiping.
Regardless. I'm curious, what's your thought about that? Because in the entertainment space, people have that conversation a lot. We get into all these debates and discussions about who is Black enough, and we think about diversity politics, but the reality is, does it even have a place, or do we have one objective as a community to say, let's make sure we got the right candidate and get them elected?
Yeah, I think that ends up with, that ends up happening. People question, and we grow up as biracial people. You guys know that I come from a biracial family, or parents. We grow up feeling like, hearing that our whole lives anyway, or you're not Black enough, you're not white enough, you're not, you know, you don't fit in different places. It's crazy that it still happens as you get older. And also, you know, a lot of people had that to say about Barack Obama at times. And it's crazy that a lot of people will say, oh, somebody's not Black enough, but then they'll also have that same argument that if you have one drop of, you know, of Black in you, then you're Black. And then want you to choose sides. But as Shaina just said, this woman's Black. You know what I mean? I think sometimes people don't, like, I don't know. It's kind of hard. It's hard for me to put into words what I'm trying to say right now. But I don't understand why people always question that, just because of like how somebody looks. You know, there's people like myself or like Barack Obama who look more Black. So people don't usually question that so much. And then there's people who like Mariah Carey or Derek Jeter or other people that look more like Caucasian. And so people will always question, like, well, you know, how they are they Black enough? Are they whatever, everything that they do. But Blackness is not just the color of your skin, you know, it's also like how you identify as, I don't want to like give Rachel Dolezal a pass, but I'm saying, you guys get what I'm saying. I'm not putting it into words correctly. I was raised in a Black family. I was raised in, you know what I mean? I identify as a Black person, even though I'm biracial. I identify as a Black person because of the way that my culture, basically.
Yeah, and you're not immune from it, right? Because the reality is you face those same type of challenges that anyone who has two Black parents face. And for the record, for people who may not recall, she was born and raised in Oakland, California, and one of her parents is from Jamaica. And so no, neither parent is African American as we think about it in that context. But as we all start tracing our genealogy, we have a lot that we will begin to uncover. Dwight, I know you were going to say something, so we'll turn it over to you before we ask Tiffany this other amazing question.
Sure. I mean, I think you're judged by your record. And I think Kamala has had, you know, kind of a spotty record as it relates to advocating for Black folks, you know, historically in a lot of ways, just like Joe Biden, right? And so that's come into question. You know, like Riley was saying, like, if you don't like hip hop, you're not Black. right? So if you're not with us, you're against us, that kind of deal. You know, like in a broad sense, just broad stripes, like that's what it is. So I can understand how that comes off. And, people oftentimes like will use that as their, cursor. They'll use that as judgment, and they'll be against you in that way.
And Ernest, California was your home state, and a lot of folks in California started voicing their opinion because, she was the Attorney General. Shaina, I'm sure you have thoughts as well, but I'm curious, to your point, Dwight, around this issue of policies that she either enacted or being the top cop in the state as people try to bill her. That's the latest moniker ascribed to her. I'm curious, Ernest, do you think that her historical past, and that's, 15, 17 years ago, and now we think about where she's sitting as a current senator and now the VP nominee on the Democratic ticket. Curious what your thought is. Do you think that has a role to play or has anything to do with whether she's really down for the cause or whether she truly is Black or not? Or is it unrelated altogether?
First of all, is Mariah Carey Black? I'm sorry, no. I really think that I think all this is much about nothing, for real, much about nothing. For the simple fact, like Riley said, they did the same thing to Barack. They did the same thing. They questioned his blackness. This woman, she went to Howard. You can check her record. Oakland. If you can survive Oakland, that's enough. If you've ever been to Oakland, you qualify, you down for the call. You are Black if you can survive Oakland and then make it to the top. I think it is ridiculous. Now, of course, she made some mistakes. Yeah, who doesn't make mistakes? The problem is, like we have this current administration, when you make a mistake, you downplay it and find other ways to get around it. But when you can apologize or claim that, hey, I made a, maybe I didn't do everything right, it's a learning tool. I think she's a perfect person for the job. I think that when things go down, she won't be afraid to stand up and defend herself. I think should anything, Lord forbid, anything happen, she would be the perfect person to step in and run this country. I think she's strong enough. She's more than capable. She's proven that, like I said, no one is perfect. No one in Washington, no one anywhere is perfect. And we do make our mistakes. We become better citizens and human beings once we admit it and we move forward and try to better ourselves. Black Twitter, go somewhere and sit down.
Riley has a response regarding your Mariah Carey comment. Tiffany, we're going to come to you.
I know. It's not about Mariah Carey. No. It's not about that. I just thought of something because I know that Ernest loves Keisha Lance Bottoms, right?
I do.
Are we? I don't know if this was on. I might be overstepping, Byron. Correct me if I am. Is this on the thing to talk about? But wasn't there a statement or something that she was disappointed that it wasn't her?
Really? That's a flash. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that. She was like, oh, she was disappointed that it wasn't her, but she was, happy that her daughter gets to see. Did I dream this? No, this happened.
I haven't seen it. Maybe our producer can pull up a quick note while we're checking unless someone knows.
First of all, Riley, I think you made that up.
But I just thought of it because I know Ernest was thinking about Ernest loved her, right?
She got COVID in that house. Joe Biden know better than to invite her on the trail to be up on stage with him. When she got the COVID, the husband got the COVID, the kid got the COVID.
This is why I thought of this. Because I know
she can't come out and play.
But Shaina, we are not going to do that. We are not going to do that.
Okay. I have go ahead and delete that out then, Tony, because the people don't want me to keep it real no more.
Listen, Shaina, I have a question because this is what because I know how Shaina felt about her, and I wonder if people think that as far as picking a Black woman, Kamala was a safe choice as opposed to. Now, I'm not saying I think that, but I'm wondering if people think that because remember what Shaina's views were on Keisha Lance Bottoms and how she talked to people and and did they think that Kamala was going to be more of the word that we like to use in the entertainment business, universal appeal. That is that what do you think? How do you feel about that?
So while I definitely think that she was, if you look at it that way, definitely safer. In that aspect, but I also think that she's more intellectually stimulating. I think that she has more appeal when we talk about the country as a whole. So when Joe Biden says, this card looks like what our country looks like, I think that Kamala definitely helps to support that and that it looks more like what our country looks like. And then when I think about the debates up against Pence, I'm definitely looking more
It ain't gonna
toward.
take. It's not gonna take a lot to beat Mike Pence in a debate. That's not a
Well,
hard
it's
effort.
not even about
like
beating
Shaina, you
him.
could do it. You got
Ma'am,
that. Like,
man, first of all,
that
I
don't
could
take
beat
a
most
lot of work.
people. I could beat most people, first of all. But I'm even thinking,
3%, right? 3%.
I'm even thinking that not even necessarily beating him, but the entertainment value for once, because that's important, but also being able to effectively communicate certain points without the Keisha Lance Bottom oomph. Like, she has a certain element to her, which would be me running, right? And I'm the everyday person. But when you're running for vice president, you can't be the everyday person. Not right now, not in this climate. If you're going to be the first Black woman to be elected, it can't be the everyday person that people are going to think is the angry Black woman, that woman on your job that's showing out, that mama that's walking out. Well, I hate
we
it
ain't
too,
even
but
gonna
it's
go
the
there.
reality. I don't want, because she gives me the feeling of the person that's going to be on the corner with her rollers on or walking outside with her pajamas on. And I'm here for it.
Well, the
Let's be clear.
upside is this.
I'm here for it. But I don't want the first Black female vice president to be the everyday girl. I want the Michelle Obama. She's not the everyday girl. She is the top echelon. She's a 10%. Oh, she's so not everyday. Girl, please.
So Tiffany,
She's not. She's far from everyday.
Because
she's
I got to keep us
everyday.
moving forward, Tiffany.
Honey, what day, Tiffany,
comment.
do you think Michelle Obama is an everyday woman?
How did the quote go exactly? She says she gets angry with him almost every day. Like it's not like this perfect high on the cloud kind of thing or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote word for word, but she didn't say that. She's never made it
that means
seem
she's
like
human.
like
That means she's human. That makes her human. It doesn't make her an everyday. That doesn't make her an everyday woman. It makes her human.
And just for the record, Mayor Bottoms did tweet congratulations to Harris shortly after the announcement, calling Biden's choice a fantastic and historic ticket. And also said, now let's go win. That's how the mayor concluded her tweet. Tiffany, I'm going to give you the final thought before we move on.
After she said what she said.
So Tiffany, let's give you the final thought before we move on and talk about COVID for a second. What's your thought about all of this conversation? Is it much to do about nothing? Is she Black enough? She's not Black enough? Is she the angry Black woman? What's your final thought?
No, I think she's fine. And I think that if this is the best that Republicans can come up with to fight against her, then they don't have a lot. So, okay. I mean, if she self-identifies as Black, that should be good enough for everybody, shouldn't it?
Oh, I agree. And she said that on the Breakfast Club. But, it's a little more than just saying that, to Riley's point earlier about Rachel Dolezal. But the other thing, I wanted to move over to this conversation about COVID. They finally have proven, the occupants said we would have a vaccine by Election Day, which we all knew that was a scam. But how do you think people are going to react now that the clinical trials are starting to come out and they're realizing that there is no way possible? I don't think any of us on this show thought it was possible anyway to have a vaccine. Ernest, let's start with you. What's your thought? Were you supportive? Did you believe that we would actually have a vaccine by Election Day?
I don't believe anything this man says. The reality is, he'll say, once again, anything to win by any means necessary. I was speaking today earlier, and I have a few friends that are Republicans. I can count them that I have, and we really don't do that well during election season, especially major election, because we really don't always see eye to eye about a lot of things. Like when Barack came in, we had this big conversation, but they were talking, but in essence, they were rooting for him, yet trying to stay close to the base, which is what Republicans do a lot. They'll cross the lines faster than Democrats will, from my experience. So in this case, what I think is, I've just lost my complete train of thought.
That's all right. Dwight, I was going to bring you this whole issue where we were promised a vaccine, and promise he did. I can say that because he said we would have a vaccine by Election Day. The clinical trials and the science does not support that. What's your thought about that?
Right. I mean, ultimately, if we're not going to be able to roll out a vaccine that's going to be safe, and we can't roll it out. Like, it doesn't make sense. I never anticipated this would be the fastest vaccine to ever be rolled out, probably in the history of the United States. And so, I'd rather it be measured twice and cut once than rolled out by Election Day and have everybody still sick or worse.
So political grandstanding. Riley, I'm going to give you the final thought on this about the vaccine because we got so much to get through for the show tonight.
Okay, well, I just have one quick question. If there was a vaccine, how many of you guys would take it by show of hands?
As soon as it comes out?
At all. Because you do realize that a vaccine, it puts the virus inside of you, right?
Inside your body, yep.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to know the answer to that question. So literally no one. All right. That's fine.
You're like, that's it for that. So I'm going to shift gears to the entertainment space. There's been a lot said about the Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion duet that dropped this last week. House Representative, since it's still political, James P. Bradley tweeted, Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion are what happened when children are raised without God and without a strong father figure. Their new song, WAP, which I heard accidentally. This is him talking, saying he heard accidentally. It made him want to pour holy water in my ears, and I feel sorry for future girls if this is their role model. Now, of course, the video also features cameos by tons of people, but Kylie Jenner also appears, and that drew a wide range of reactions, from shock to hilarious aversion and valid criticism about cultural appropriation. I'm just curious, what's your thoughts? I mean, the video is out now. You got a congressman offering one perspective, and then you got a whole separate set of thoughts about Kylie Jenner, because she did get quite a bit of screen time, more so than anybody else, with the exception of Cardi and Meg Thee Stallion. I'm curious, Shaina, what's your thought if you've seen the video? And if you haven't, I don't know what rock you've been hiding under.
So listen, so I saw the video and it was so, okay, no judgment, right? It was so nostalgic for me because my grandma, may she rest in peace. The first thing that came to my mind when I heard the song is my grandma would have loved this song. Like, my grandma loves Trina. She loves that My Neck, My Back song. So,
Kaya.
like Kaya, that's it. Kaya, but then she likes Trina because I remember her getting in my car one day and I was playing the baddest bitch and she got out, was like, I turned down. She was like, no, play that song. Let me hear the baddest bitch. So my grandma always loved, she's like, oh, she's nasty. She likes vulgar music. So I would always listen to those songs. So when WAP came out, I was like, oh my God, I played it for my grandma. I played it to her obituary. It's hilarious. I put the obituary there and I played the song. Okay, that's grim, but whatever. But I love the song, cracked me up. It was hilarious. But I mean, I had a daddy. I had two daddies, and I absolutely love it. It takes me to women's empowerment, to a point where women can finally speak about what they want to talk about, how they want to speak about it, and show themselves in a way that they find themselves to be sexy. And guys have been doing it for years. It brought me back to the 90s. I was thinking about Luke and the 2 Live Crew. Guys have been doing this forever, and it's been okay. Let these women get their money, shake their butts, sing their music, and the flows were nice, though. The lyrics were on point, and they delivered. I'm here for it. I didn't hear it accidentally. Now, what I was surprised at is when I heard the radio edit, which made me think they were even more talented. Because I'm like, how can they clean this up and take away all the bad words and we still get the same feeling? I was like, I got that same feeling. Give it to me. I'm here for it.
So Ernest Collins, what you think? As we sit here and look at Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion, another hit, there's no question about that.
Man, when I first heard it, I'm jealous that this generation gets it now, and we couldn't get that. We couldn't get anything like. We couldn't even listen to Tonight Is the Night. Betty Wright, man, we had to leave the room, and she really wasn't saying anything. Man, I heard the lyrics of this stuff and how detailed it is. Fire is all I can say. The lyrics on fire. Now the senator, it's an election year. I don't know what his problem is. He needs to mind his business like everybody else. This is not your arena. You're not 45. This is what this generation likes. I mean, if they can make money off of it, I'm gonna listen. I think the lyrics are fire.
Well, you know, Tiffany, it's not the first time we've had politicians weigh in on rap music specifically. I think Tipper Gore back in the day weighed in, put her foot in a little too far. I'm curious your thoughts, since the congressman did offer his commentary as it relates to this particular song.
You know, I think the congressman making that kind of statement was definitely tongue-in-cheek for evangelical church and things like this. But really, what I found the most interesting was he said he slipped and fell he accidentally heard the song some kind of way. I don't know.
The whole song? Phrase. You accidentally heard the whole song?
Yeah, I accidentally heard the song. The problem is that some girl that he knew, you know, someone that he knew personally heard the song. That's what I personally think it is. It's
So
like,
his kids
and
was
you
playing the
accidentally
song.
hear the
The
song.
kids were playing it.
This is not exactly.
Or
Exactly.
allegedly, perhaps he's dating someone who's much younger and they were already bumping it. Or as my
So-
grandma would say,
someone
bumping
in
bump music.
proximity to him was listening to this song, and he was not happy with whomever it was that was listening to this song, which is why I think it was a daughter.
Look, I got to keep it moving, but we do have a resident VMA award winner on the show. So Riley Knoxx, we got to get your perspective, but we know how you probably feel about the song in general, but I want to talk about this controversy about Kylie Jenner because people tweeted some really significant stuff and they're saying she's appropriating Black culture. She should be canceled. What's your thought about that? As somebody who's appeared in an international video and won an award for it, what's your thinking about, in this particular case, them featuring Kylie?
Well, thank you for shouting out my accolade.
Anybody else got one?
Sitting over there. It's so interesting to me that people were pissed that Kylie got more time than the other girls that were featured in the video. Well, guess what? Kylie's more famous than all of them. So of course they're gonna use their video to get those Kylie's fans in there also, right? Appropriating Black culture, how? What did she do? She had on a sexy outfit and was just walking down a hallway. I don't understand. She wasn't in blackface. She wasn't like in cornrows or any, you know what I mean? So that was
Doesn't
really
she have a baby with a Black man?
She does have a
Does
baby.
she have
with
a Black baby? Oh, okay.
Right.
She
So
got
here's
to
the
have
other
Black
thing.
up
If
in
you
her.
want
Come
to say,
on.
I think people get it misconstrued that like, okay, we don't just want Black, we want equality, right? That's what we've been fighting for. We've not been fighting for just everything to be just Black and everything to be just white, because by the way, that's what things were. That's not what we want to happen. So it's an integrated video. There is a Hispanic girl in there, there's a Black girl in there, light skin, dark skin, white girl. Why wouldn't Kylie be in there? Kylie is the millennial, like, I don't want to say queen, but like she's like the person that everybody like, looks up to, that in that age range. So we've got people that are going to watch the video that are going to be Megan Thee Stallion fans. The people that are going to be Cardi B fans. There are people that are going to be Hispanic, like the Rosalina fans. There are people who are going to love Kylie, all around across the board. And so it just doesn't make sense. But I think what it is, as we have argued on this show before about, is anytime a Kardashian or Jenner is in anything, people want to go, oh my God, I can't believe they got a petition with 70,000 people signing it for this woman to be out of when she did nothing but walk down the hallway and had the authorization of the two people whose song that it is. It makes absolutely no sense. And I think people are just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. You guys know how I feel about the Kardashian, Jenner, that whole thing, but this had nothing to do with that. This was just, okay, there's Kylie in a video. She made a cameo. And then Cardi had to defend her and say, the reason that she did is because, well, her boyfriend and my boyfriend are in a group together. So we became friendly through that. Her stepfather I'm cool with her mother, and her stepfather gave me advice, and we're cool, and all. So she's kind of like, we're friendly. So yeah, boom, put Kylie in there.
Wait, Riley, did you say all she did was walk down the hallway?
Well, I mean, she did
more than just walk down the hallway. Honey, she gave that body. She gave the people the business. That's what they're mad about. And that's why they're mad. That's why they're mad.
I was going to say, Dwight, we're going to give you the final thought on this particular segment. What's your thinking?
Yeah, there's such a double standard, I think, in this country, in this society overall. And the fact of the matter is the people that judge these things, they're just as nasty, right? They want to say these things, and they say these things actually probably in their private homes, but they just don't put it all out there. So I think it's super funky, the fact that they come out and criticize it and really try to like discriminate, especially when it comes to Black culture in general.
That's very well said. I always tell people what amazes me is that we've got time to talk about all these folks, and ain't none of them thinking about us when they go to the bank to cash them checks. Go ahead, Riley. Final point.
I just wanted to say, to that point, I would love for men to stay out of things that have nothing to do with them at all, because men have been rapping about their penises and rapping about they've been rapping about girls' vaginas before girls were rapping about their own vaginas, So now you're mad that a woman's talking about her and talking about her sexuality, and you were saying that people are mad because they're like, or he said his statement was, these are people that didn't have God in their life. Why are those mutually exclusive? why being sexual has nothing, like you can't love God and also be comfortable with your sexuality.
We're going to leave it right there on that note. I want to mention this other great topic, back to COVID-19, especially for our entrepreneurs on the show tonight. COVID-19, the crisis has wiped out nearly half of all Black small businesses. The pandemic has disproportionately ravaged minority communities. Black-owned businesses were more than twice as likely to close than their white counterparts. Specifically, Black businesses experienced the most acute decline with a 41% drop. Latino businesses fell by 32%, and Asian businesses dropped by 26%. And the number of white-owned small firms, in contrast, fell only 17%. Now, why have Black businesses been twice as likely to close as their counterparts? Do you think it's institutional racism? Is it a lack of capital, a lack of a backup plan, or poor management? Let's kick this particular segment off. Shaina, let's start with you.
Oh, that's so tricky. One of the things,
So
one of the things that I always say about owning a small business, mine just happens to be Black owned, right? One of the things about owning a small business is that when troubles arise or when you grow too fast, when you have a large shift or a huge change, anything that's weak in the foundation, you start to see those cracks. So in the life of COVID and everything that's going on, if your foundation was weak, so if you had bad service, if you had employees that weren't good, if you didn't have a sound business structure or business plan, or your mission wasn't clear, when something like COVID-19 hits, the business is gonna crumble. That's one of the things that we know about business. So that, I think, played a huge part in some of them. But yeah, I mean, institutionalized racism plays a huge part because we're already underprivileged and under everything else, whatever words you put after, we're already behind the other businesses when we start. But I always focus on what we can control. So the things that we can't control, we just have to get better at. I know one of the things that I've said during the last few months is every week I've made it a point several times throughout the week is to spend money with minority-owned businesses. That's just the goal. If I wasn't going to buy nothing, I'm going to buy something, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's an online retailer, no matter what it is. But one of the things I noticed is like dealing with online retailers and things like that, the response time has been slow more often than not. The service hasn't been great more often than not. And I'm like, you ain't got nothing to do. It's COVID. You're sitting at
But
home.
they might
You're
have
running
also lost staff. They could have lost staff in that too.
Because a lot of those, it's the owner mainly that's handling all of the business. And even if you've lost staff, especially during this time, responsiveness is very important. You got to communicate with people. You got to say something, even if it's a bounce back email. I think those are just the small details that as minority owned businesses, we don't really focus on at the forefront. Those aren't things that we take a lot of time to build into. We're good at what we do. And we're like, oh, we know we can do the task part of it, but the business part of it, we don't always do a really good job in. And I'm sure that's not 100% of the reason, but I can guarantee you it plays a role in it, unfortunately.
So Tiffany, as we're talking about this very timely issue of Black businesses that are affected by COVID, what's your thinking in terms of, do you think it's an issue of a lack of capital or preparation? Or to Shaina's point, some people just lack customer service and people are not doing business with them?
No, I definitely think that this is a financial issue. I believe that most Black businesses, or at least the ones that I have interacted with, really fund month to month. Their funding and their capital is made by their profits. So you go a month, maybe two, all of a sudden now you're in financial debt and potentially a crisis. And this has no end in sight, basically. A lot of Black businesses were not receiving PPP loans. And if they were underfunded for those loans. They weren't able to cash in on those, especially when you have big businesses being shamed out of the money that they got because they shouldn't have gotten it in the first place. So it's multiple avenues where, I do agree with Shaina that there probably is a customer service related issue, but that technically is not really new to Black business. There are a lot of Black businesses that have been known or have had a reputation or a stereotype, more or less, of being slow with service and et cetera. So that narrative, I gotta push back on that. But significantly, financial issues, I think, is the biggest problem.
Yeah, it's just kind of like managing your household budget from time to time. If you manage paycheck to paycheck, and then when you're managing business paycheck to paycheck. Dwight, let's get your perspective from a business standpoint. What's your thought in terms of the number of Black businesses that have already closed and disproportionately affected like every other category related to COVID?
Sure. I think, as a project manager, lessons learned are so important, and archiving those lessons learned are so important in business. And I don't think that Black businesses have had the longevity and legacy like how white businesses have. To archive those lessons learned, look at them, and try to figure out the solutions to address all of those things. And so, we are getting to that point where, we have, millennials who are starting business. Entrepreneurship is at an all-time high in our community, and we're getting to that point. But white folks have had a longer road. They've had more time to fail and learn than we have. So we're just getting, to that point where we can, be successful in that way.
And they say credit has nothing to do with either the EIDL or the PPP, but the reality is it has an impact. Ernest, let's get your thought as well before we move forward, and then bring Riley in too.
It is unfortunate that I don't get to support many Black businesses, or I'm aware of many Black businesses, but the few situations that I have encountered, is like Shaina said, I'm big on customer service. I do support and would support if it fits within the range of what I'm looking for. And that's often, the negative stereotype, like things not coming on time, poor customer service. These are the things that I'm big on when it comes to spending my dollars. Now, if I could find any business, doesn't really matter. I mean, I wish I could support more Black businesses, and I wish that I could, be more informative as to and give more output on what's going on. But I just have not been exposed to enough of them. I think it's always awful when you put out for a venture and it's unsuccessful because of something unforeseen. I think that's very unfortunate. And like Dwight said earlier, everyone isn't afforded the same thing. I have to believe that the same Black businesses, and I'm sure Shaina can, understand this as well, they're not always afforded the same thing as the other white businesses, So it is a struggle from the beginning, and to stay afloat during these times, I'm sure it's challenging. But once again, it's unfortunate, and I wish there was something that they could do above and beyond to help these struggling businesses, as opposed to keeping afloat these businesses that are going to do well anyway, despite, they'll survive better than the Black businesses will.
Yeah. So Riley, we're going to give you the last word on this particular one before we move forward.
My thought when you were going down that list is it's a combination of all of those things. I think it's a combination of all of that. I don't think it's like, is it this or is it that? It's all of those.
All of those things.
And if I can add, Byron, a couple of things really quick before we move on. Along with all of what you guys have said, one of the things that we also don't focus on, because I know Tiffany mentioned it, Ernest as well, like with the PPP loans and the funding with the EIDLs, one of the first things they start to ask is, what's your criminal background? They start to ask those things on I notice on the applications, because they really want to weed people out. And that's the systematic and the institutionalized piece that we're talking about. Because if you have any pretty much type of a record, you weren't going to get any of that money, number one. Number two, one of the things that I noticed we do with small businesses and Black-owned businesses is we don't always handle our paperwork right? We don't file the taxes the way we're supposed to. We don't have all the right business licenses like we're supposed to. So when this tide comes around where there are things that are available, it's like, oh crap, we can't even apply for it because we're not legit in that way. So that's just something I just wanted to put out there as well. We just got to get better. Those are those cracks in the infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about like navigating uncharted territory. Like that is legit. Like if you've been in choppy water before, you know how to navigate it. If you've driven in New York City, you can drive in New York City. You know what I mean? But if you're coming from Maryland where they do your road test and, in a parking lot, and then you try to drive in New York City, you're going to fail. Right.
Yeah, that don't work.
And white folks, frankly, have had that opportunity to drive in New York City before. They've had the opportunity to navigate choppy water before, way more than we have. And so we just have to get to that point. We're in practice right now. There's a lot of people doing amazing things, and we'll get there.
Yeah. This is
Go
why
ahead,
I say,
Ernest.
this is why I say we should get rid of algebra in school and let's teach business. Like, can we teach business and money management skills in school instead of algebra, which I haven't used algebra. I don't know if any of you have used it since you graduated from high school, but you know what I really could have used? Money management skills and business sense, all of those
Absolutely.
things. But I think it's all part of a systematic, like, way to keep certain groups of people, i.e. Black people, in a certain bracket. And I think that, just like Dwight just said, if you don't know, if it's an uncharted territory for you, then you're doomed to fail. And that's pretty much the way the system is set up. But
Yeah,
let's
I
get
think
into
those are key lessons that a lot of folks, hopefully the listeners really tune in, because much of the information that's been shared, those points that both Shaina made and Dwight made, are incredibly valid. I own a couple businesses as well, and I can tell you I have other colleagues who do, and they're not in the same position because they haven't taken care of their business when they should have, and now these opportunities come around and they're not ready. I want to move forward to one other thing. This is a rapid fire. It's an easy one. I know what I think the answer is, but wanted to share with you formally that the White House has asked if the occupant could be added to Mount Rushmore by saying, it's my dream to have my face on Mount Rushmore. The occupant is quoted as saying, but the National Park Service has addressed the subject with a hard no, citing instability to the structure, making it impossible to make any additions. Quickly, what's your thoughts? Who has a quick thought about the occupant being added or wanting to be added to Mount Rushmore, but being told no by the National Park Service? We're going to take Tiffany, and then we'll go to Riley.
This is just an ego stunt and a distraction. So it's multiple layered with him. And it's what have you done to even remotely be close to successful? That's my question.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
They said they cited the instability to put up there. I think that was both figuratively and literal. And it's so funny because our producer will remember a few years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, our producer and I went to Trump Towers for lunch, and his complaint was his name is on everything. Like, it's on the soap, it's on the chocolate bars, it's on everything. And I'm just like, yeah, it's on everything. And now he wants his face. You think that, how arrogant of you to think that you have done something so great other than ruin this country, to put your face up there with all those other people. Now, while a lot of those faces that are up there are, there's a few things that are problematic with each of them. People can argue that. Is nowhere near as bad as the occupant. So this is just an ego thing. And I honestly, it's just laughter is all that I have for that.
All right, I'm gonna move forward. Chriselle Stoltz.
Before we move forward on that, I just got one question. It's a quick fire back to you, Byron. Are they about to paint Mount Rushmore orange?
Wait.
Is it gonna be orange?
Wait.
Is it gonna be orange? Because how can they put his face up if it ain't gonna be orange? Are they adding color?
Ernest Collins. Yes.
How is he going to have his face put up on Rush? I mean, isn't he going to prison? Don't they smash rocks in prison?
Oh, he's gonna chisel himself. He's gonna chisel himself up there. Then he's gonna chisel his orange self up there. Okay, we're sorry, Byron. Hit it.
I can't. Listen, let me move. Sorry. I'm gonna move forward. Chriselle Stoltz, who's the star of the Netflix series Selling Sunset, just admitted that her ex-husband, Justin Hartley, star of This Is Us, told her he was filing for divorce in a text message. And this was big news over the weekend in social media world. So if you're breaking up with someone, obviously you feel a certain kind of way about them. Does it really matter how you let them know that the relationship is over? Totally switching gears. Is it appropriate to actually not only just break up, but say that you're gonna file for divorce via text? Let's start with you, Dwight, and then we'll go to Ernest.
I mean, bro, is it really a surprise? If you're texting that, like, she had to see it coming. You know what I mean? I don't see it being a surprise in any way, shape, or form. And however you get it, you get it. You knew it was coming. It is what it is.
Wow. So text message is okay with you because it should be expected.
Well, I mean, you signed up for it. So I guess it is what it is.
Divorce though? All right, Ernest, we're gonna go to you. Shaina, we'll deal with that finger in a minute.
I'm gonna start right now. Ladies, I love y'all so much. I want to just reach through and hug each and every one of y'all, okay? So This is stop. Okay, so what a gangster move, man. What a gangster move. I mean, what a gangster move. Women have been doing it forever, man. They've been dogging us forever like that. So is it appropriate? That's not for me to say, but personally, what a gangster move, man. That's all I have to say.
Shaina, what's the finger about? What's the finger about?
So the funniest thing is that I've always thought, I mean, that, you know, divorce should not be a surprise. You knew it was coming. It was this, and that. But until it happened to me by surprise, Ernest, you remember, when I got divorced, it was like I was literally sitting in the house with my then husband. It was Robert night. It was our regular Monday night thing. Y'all remember Moesha was on, then that other grown-up show. It was like we were doing our Monday night thing, watching our shows, and somebody rang the doorbell. He opens the door and tells me, oh, somebody's at the door, some court shit. I'm like, okay. And then I literally went to the door and got served divorce papers. I had zero idea. Like, I mean, I had no idea. I was completely blindsided, caught off guard. We had never had a conversation about divorce. I mean, granted, things weren't perfect. We were working through it, I thought, but I had zero idea. And everybody else was like, what did you do? Like, well, I was surprised. I went and sat back down. We finished watching the shows, and then I went to sleep.
So would you have rather a text message letting you know that the marriage was about to come to an end, as opposed to
No, I think that, no, it should not be a surprise. There has to be a conversation that you have with somebody before the text. If you remember back in the Sex and the City, before the Post-it, like there has to be a conversation before somebody breaks up with somebody. You can't just, especially a divorce. Oh my God, that's terrible. Shame on you.
It's interesting you say that, not to try to top your story, but my relationship ended because I was in the middle of our anniversary cruise and got asked to come back to the room late in the evening. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, it's a good time, right? I've been drinking. It's great. I'll come back to the cabin, not a problem. We're not going to be together anymore. I'm like, what? Anyway, I'll move forward.
Shame on them.
You can't go
right. I could have jumped off the boat. I mean, I'm stronger than that, but you know, ain't no tell. Oh, I could throw you off the boat. But anyway, what's your thought, Riley, before we move forward, and Tiffany?
Okay, well, no sympathy, please. No, don't look at me like poor little pathetic Riley. But when I heard this, okay, well, first of all, she said that she got the text message, and then 45 minutes later, the rest of the world was finding out she was divorced along with her. And so she didn't even have time to react. I've never been married, but I've been dumped via text quite a few times. And so I kind of thought, oh, well, this seems kind of normal. Like, not normal, but just kind of like, oh, okay. But divorce, that sounds crazy. And I know that a lot of people dump people via text because they say you should either dump people usually like in a crowded restaurant so that they won't make so much of a scene or whatever. So maybe that was what he was trying to avoid. I don't condone it, but it wasn't that far-fetched for me because I've been dumped via text like I don't know how many times.
And I wonder if messaging and data rates apply to the text. Tiffany Thomas, you get the final thought.
You know, you could. I think that someone could just do better than that. Like that just feels really inappropriate as a way. It's one thing to break up like that, you know, but a divorce is very messy and painful and it's not something that you would want to put someone that at some point you loved through that in that kind of fashion. That's all I got.
No care.
Well, issue. They're in the public eye.
Look, it happens. Obviously, it's happening. Riley, yes, no sympathy for you, but we empathize and certainly understand.
Yeah.
Look, Shaina and I have our own unique perspectives. I'm going to move forward to this final story for the week. This is absolutely crazy. As I was researching it, I just couldn't believe it to be the case, but I'm going to share it with you and get your thoughts. Alex Chernoff, who's 38, out of Chicago, Illinois, is a woman with unusual accomplishments. Alex had her 100th abortion last week and said that was the best day of her life. What's even more disturbing is that Alex had video recorded over 60 of her abortions and sold them on the dark web and made a fortune. If you think that's weird, there's more. She's apparently made $1 million by live streaming her 100th abortion on the dark web for her twisted fans. and the fetus from the last abortion was shipped to the biggest bidder for $100,000. Alex said she was turned down by the Guinness Book of World Records when she submitted her record for 50 abortions when she was only 27 years old. They turned me down thinking I would stop, but look at me now, 11 years later, I've doubled that number. Curious what your thoughts are in thinking about that particular story. 100 abortions and several $1 million later.
This is sick.
Ernest Collins.
Is she in jail? What state is she in? I mean, is this real? Am I being punked here? Somebody actually really had 100 abortions? Listen, I've always said, and I don't hide this, I believe in pro-choice. It is a woman's body. You have the choice to do what you want to do. But 100, I mean, there's so many words I could say that's inappropriate about what I would say this woman. 100 abortions, that's ridiculous. And I have nothing else to say. I think it's ridiculous. It's sad. It's everything negative that I could come up with.
Go ahead, Riley.
I think this is disgusting. It is really interesting to me because I have questions. Who are the people that are getting you pregnant? One. Two, who are the people that are giving you these abortions? Because I'm pretty sure they asked, have you ever done this before, right? Three, and that who's allowing you to film this happening? And also, how after like 100 abortions are you even able to still get pregnant? Like, that's strange. Oh God, I don't want to even say it. I know people who have had abortions and they've had, who've had multiple abortions and they've had problems going forward, health issues going forward, and fertility issues. So I just don't understand. I have so many questions, and it also, I kind of feel like, like, what's the point of asking these questions? Because you're clearly just sadistic and crazy and.
Because who's going to pay $100,000? I'm just saying. Dwight, what's your thought about this particular story?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point it's a fetish, right? There's something that happens where, like, you know, she gets off on the fact that she gets pregnant and aborts the baby because, you know, there are things for that, right? There are contraceptives, there's birth control, all those things. Like, if you don't want to be pregnant, don't get pregnant. We have drugs, we got things, all that, right? But she gets off on it and she sees that there's a business model that works for her and she's earned. And so if that makes sense, that makes sense. But ultimately it's a fetish. I think it's silly. It's disrespectful. You know, I'm definitely pro-choice in every way, shape, or form, but, you know, this is twisted and sick, 1,000%.
Tiffany Thomas, before we go to Shaina for the final thought on this particular piece, what's your thought about Miss Alex?
You know, I just am curious about the mental and spiritual and emotional toll that this takes on you. Like, I too have known women that have had abortions and in some cases multiple abortions, and the guilt and the emotions and the feelings and the loss that you feel associated with all of that. Where is your empathy for a human life? Regardless, I judge no one on any decisions that they make, because, you know, there are so many layers into making that kind of a decision. But I don't understand how you don't feel like this is your child at some point.
Well, in this case, it would have been 100 of them. Shaina, what's your thought?
I'll tell you quickly. I don't judge people on things because it's not my business. But on your 100th abortion, I am all the way judging. Guilty, straight to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. But what I think this is, it's capitalism at its best. In this country, we see that you can do certain things. You can degrade yourself. You can deform yourself. You can do all kinds of things to yourself and make money. This woman has clearly figured that out. She's made millions. And in fact, there's some sadistic, crazy, insane person with mental health issues, I'm sure, because nobody wants to buy a dead fetus unless somebody has some serious mental problem. I'm not even going to say mental health because that's different. Somebody has a mental problem. Something is wrong with them that they need to get checked on when you want to buy somebody's dead fetus. Capitalism.
I wouldn't know this, but don't abortion hurt.
I would be specific, like Dwight was saying. I think at this point in time, she also sees it as a sheer business opportunity. I'll be curious to find out what else the rest of her career is. I'm not going to make the assumption. We verified, she is white. She's not a person of color. Not like that's a surprise necessarily. I'm not going to be stereotypical. However, we ain't going to do that 100 times. We just not. The show has gone by quick tonight. There's so much to cover, and we'll get into some other stuff on the next episode. But for folks who are looking on YouTube, make sure that you like, subscribe, and also share, ring the alarm for the notifications. We want to thank you all tonight. Ernest Collins, thank you for joining us back this evening. Riley Knoxx, good to see you as always. So glad to have you with us. And thank you, Shaina Taylor. Thank you so much. And Tiffany Thomas, our political maven. Always good to have you. And Dwight, thanks for visiting us as a special guest and sitting in once again. And we're going to leave you with this particular quote that comes from Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, because we've come full circle. And she said, "I think today it is evident there is an affirmation of not only Black women, but women of Southeast Asia, women of color, that they have finally reached a status where they are affirmed in this nation as equal partners. And this mountain that we've all been trying to climb, Kamala has now taken us to the mountaintop." And as always, we thank you for watching and ask that you join us again when next we speak.